Hi, this is Alex from PHP Academy, and welcome to this CSS tutorial on text indenting. Now, the first big thing we're going to take a look at is the text indent property. We're going to look at what it does, and we'll give a quick example. And after that, we're going to sort of put some more use into this and see how we can be a bit hacky with the way we design things. And that's in terms of submit buttons and how we can use or change submit buttons, perhaps add a custom image or some kind of image font, something like that. So, we're going to add some use to it and add some value to it. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I have nothing on my page at the moment. I've got my style sheet linked in with no styles in there at all, and I'm just going to go ahead and create a paragraph. Now I'm going to give this a class of indent, and this means that we're going to be indenting the first line of this paragraph. So let's go ahead and just type any content at all, so any content at all, and I'm going to go ahead and just copy and paste this over and over again. And this will just ensure that we get some kind of multi-line. I'm going to set a width to this so we can control it somewhat. When I refresh, you see that we have this result here. Let's go ahead and style this. So I'm going to say p.indent. I'm going to give this a fixed width of, say, around 300 pixels, and that will now look like that. Now we're going to look at the text indent property. So let's go ahead and do this. Now, when we think about text indenting, it's obvious what it will actually do. It'll indent the text somewhat. Now, with such a paragraph, for example, like this, essentially, really what we've got is one line of text or one chunk of text, regardless of whether it's broken up with breaks or anything like that. Whatever you apply a text indent to, it will only indent the first line, and the rest of the characters will be shifted over. So, for example, let's go ahead and use text indent on this, and then I'll show you how to make it a bit better when you're applying this to real life. And then we'll go ahead and look at the button example. So there's quite a bit to look at here. So text indent, we can use measurements, we can use percentages, however we would usually specify values. I'm going to go for 10 pixels. Let's load our browser back up and refresh, and you can see that the first line of this paragraph, or really the only line because it's just one line of text, has been indented by 10 pixels here. And there's no characters being inserted or anything, it literally just is an indentation. So it's almost like a padding or a margin, but just for the first line here. So as I said, this is just one line of text. Now, if, for example, you were outputting an article or outputting some data and you had paragraphs in there, or if you were outputting, small chunks of text in a paragraph, you tend to have perhaps lots of different paragraphs. So, for example, if we had an article, and I'm using the HTML5 article tag or HTML5 markup. Let's say we had lots of paragraphs within an article. Okay, so some more content, and let's just go ahead and copy and paste this. That will do for now. So at the moment it looks like this. We have a couple of paragraphs. Again, we'll go ahead and style these. We're not going to be using p.indent, we'll just say p, or we'll say article p. So any paragraphs within an article, which makes sense. I've already given the example of you may have an article and you may have lots of paragraph tags within. I'm going to set a width to these, so we'll say 400 pixel, make it slightly bigger this time. Now, we might want to apply this text indent to all paragraphs within an article, and that's the correct sort of typographical, or however you would lay out an article way of doing things. So if I now use text indent, that'll apply the text indent to every paragraph within article, and this gives us a nice effect, something that we would usually see in an article with the first line of every paragraph indented. So we don't just need to apply this to one element, we can do this to all paragraphs within an article in this example, or however you feel necessary on your page. So this is a more standard practical use of the text indent property, let's go ahead and look at a more fun, hacky example of using this, and that is with input fields, not just any input field, with submit or buttons. So let's go ahead and remove our styles, and we'll remove our article and paragraph tags, and we'll start with a clean browser. Now I'm going to go ahead and create a submit button. So I'm going to create an input field. The type is going to be submit, and I'm not going to worry about giving it a class or an actually I will. I'll go ahead and give it a class. I'll say submit. Okay, so let's just say no, we'll get rid of that. That's adding an unnecessary attribute. We can select by the type. So let's say we wanted all submit buttons to have a background image. I'm just going to be using a background image that I've used in the rest of this CSS series. I'm not going to bother creating any special images. For example, I may want a tick, for example, as a background of an image of an input submit type. Now, let's go ahead and select this first of all. So we'll say input type equals and then submit. That's relatively straightforward. Now we can start to style this button. Now, by default, it looks like this. We've got this submit text in there. Now, we could go ahead and we could say value equals nothing. Okay, and that would achieve basically having no text within our submit button. And what we might want to then do is say width 300 pixels, and we refresh. So we're setting it to a custom size. Now the problem with this is we're actually setting a value of nothing. And for example, if you were blind and you were using a screen reader to access a web page, what really here would give you any information about what you're submitting? For example, this could be submit to or submit by email, and we could have another saying submit by SMS, for example. Okay, so you could have a variety of options. This is probably a bad example, but you could have a variety of submit buttons, and unless you supply a value, software like screen readers aren't going to be able to pick up on these. So it's a really important point to include some kind of text that allows it to be read out to partially sighted or blind users, and it's good semantics to include a value in here as well. So let's go ahead and leave it at, say, submit by email. And the whole point of this is that we're going to be using a graphic instead of this text. So we want to keep the text in there, but we don't want the text to be shown. We want to substitute it with an image. So I'm going to go ahead and set this to about a width of 150, and we'll give it a height of, say, I don't know, 50 pixels. This is just off the top of my head. Okay, yeah, that's fine. Now what we want to do is we want to apply a background image to this. So that's fair enough. We can go ahead and do that. We can set a background here, and we specify the URL. And we're going to say no repeat as well. We already know that. Now inside of here, we might want to say, we're going to say images tick.png. That's just an image that I have stored in a folder already. Now when I refresh, you can see that the background of the submit button has changed to this tick image. I'll go ahead and set this to 50%, and that's going to center it within the submit button there. Now I need to go ahead and get rid of this text. Well, I can't, because we've already established that I can't miss out this value here. It would be, a mess of accessibility to get rid of this value. So here we can use the text indent CSS property to hide the text, but not actually remove it from the markup itself. So if for example I was to say text indent, I could say minus 1000 pixels, for example. And you'll notice that what that does is that places it minus 1000 pixels away, this way, left from where it appears by default. So if I go ahead and inspect this, you can see that we've got text indent. If I remove this property value, it's there, and we can go ahead and we can look at how this works. So we can say text indent minus 10 pixels, for example, and if I press the the up key on here, or the down key. Oh, sorry, I've put intent. Indent. -18. If I press the down key, you can see this start to move away. So you can see how it actually works. It's hiding this from view. Now, -1000 pixel might seem a bit extreme, but it means if we ever go and resize this button, say we want to give it a width of 350 pixels, we know that it's still going to be hidden from view because we've set it at such a far offset. I mean, by all means, this could be 1000 pixels, and that would be 1000 pixels to the right. Either way, it doesn't really matter as long as it's a high enough value not to actually start to appear in your code. So we've set a background image to this submit button while keeping the markup accessible to people that might not be able to visually see the form itself. Obviously, this tick is meaningless to us, but it could be a nice picture of an email or a letter or something like that. But that's a quick demonstration of the text indent property, and then a more in-depth explanation of how it could be used in practical means, but while keeping your markup accessible to everyone. So that's text indent in CSS.